Why did ancient Egyptians worship cats as gods and then kill them? Tonight, I'm exposing the dark secrets behind Egypt's sacred cats. Because this wasn't just about animal worship, this was a strategic plan for the afterlife. The pharaoh's relationship with cats was based on mysterious rituals that continue to echo in the modern world. But here's what's truly shocking. Recently translated hieroglyphs revealed that the cat worship system was actually a sophisticated mind control operation. The priests deliberately created cat addiction among the population to maintain absolute power. They distributed special incense made from cat pheromones in temples, creating chemical dependency on feline presence. Even more disturbing, newly discovered papyrus documents showed that the priests had secret breeding programs to create cats with specific psychoactive properties in their saliva and fur. When people petted these engineered cats, they experienced euphoric states that made them completely submissive to religious authority. The mass cat sacrifice wasn't about afterlife, it was about destroying evidence of this ancient biological warfare program before it could be discovered by rival empires. Before we step into these ancient temples, where cats ruled and died, please hit that like button and let me know in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is. I love seeing our global community come together for these journeys into history's most complex mysteries. Now, dim those lights, maybe turn on a fan for some gentle background noise, and let's venture together into the most paradoxical animal worship system in human history. In 1350 BCE, in the palace of Pharaoh Amenhotep III, there lived a golden-eyed cat named Miuty. This cat wasn't just a pet. She was the pharaoh's spiritual guardian, divine guide, and guarantee of his afterlife. But what Miuty didn't know was that with the pharaoh's death, she too would be sent to the afterlife, because in ancient Egypt, the sacred status of cats was both a great privilege and an inevitable death sentence. Miuty's story was just one example of the drama experienced by thousands of Pharaoh's cats. These cats wore golden collars, ate the finest food, and lived in the most beautiful rooms of the palace. But at the same time, they didn't know that they would die with their master's deaths. The tradition of worshipping cats in ancient Egypt began around 3100 BCE in the early periods. Cats were only valued as mouse and snake hunters. Cats were kept to protect grain stores in the Nile Delta from mice. But over time, the special abilities of cats were noticed. They could see at night, move silently, and had very fast reflexes. Egyptians interpreted these as supernatural powers. The first cat goddess was Mafdet. This goddess, with a lion's head and woman's body, provided protection against scorpions and snakes. Mafdet's connection with cats eventually led to cats being considered sacred. But the real revolution occurred with the emergence of the goddess Bastet. Initially depicted with a lion's head, Bastet gradually began to be shown with a cat's head. This change completely transformed the status of cats. Bastet was the protector of home, family, women, and children. She was also the goddess of music, dance, and joy. Cats were seen as Bastets, representatives on earth. This belief system led to cats having a very special position in daily life. Egyptians called cats mo from the meowing sound. This wasn't just a name, but also a sacred title. Killing cats became one of the most serious crimes. Anyone who killed a cat, even accidentally, was sentenced to death. This punishment was taken so seriously that some Egyptians committed suicide after killing a cat. Herodotus, the ancient Greek historian, wrote in the 5th century BCE, when he visited Egypt, Egyptians go to such extremes in their respect for cats that if a fire breaks out, they rescue cats first, then think about their homes. This description might seem exaggerated, but archaeological findings confirm Herodotus. In many Egyptian homes, special rooms, feeding areas, and even small sacred spaces for cats have been found. But the real power of cats emerged in the pharaohs' palaces. Pharaohs didn't just see cats as pets. They were divine guides, protectors, and keys to the afterlife. In Pharaoh Amenhotep III's palace, more than 200 cats lived. These cats had different duties in different parts of the palace. Some slept in the pharaoh's bedroom, others stood in the throne room. Each cat had a special name, special duty, and special status. Cats were an integral part of the pharaoh's daily routine. When he woke up in the morning, cats were beside him. When he ate, cats waited under the table. Before he slept at night, cats wandered around him. This closeness wasn't just about affection. According to belief, cats protected the pharaoh's soul from evil forces. At night, they drove away bad dreams and evil spirits. During the day, they guided the pharaoh's decisions. The behavior of cats was interpreted as prophecy. If cats were calm, it meant good days for the pharaoh. If cats were tense, it meant danger was approaching. The cat's meowing, walking, sleeping position, ... Everything was analyzed, and political decisions were made accordingly. This system gave cats great power. But at the same time, it brought great responsibility, because if something bad happened to the pharaoh, cats were blamed. During Pharaoh Akhenaten's reign, this system reached its peak. Akhenaten had introduced monotheism, but maintained his respect for cats. He even saw cats as representatives of the god Aten on earth. In Akhenaten's palace, cats were treated like humans. They had special food, special beds, even special clothes, golden collars, precious stone decorations, silk pillows. Cats lived truly royal lives. But this luxury had a price. Cats were the pharaoh's property. They had no will of their own. When they would eat, where they would sleep, who they would spend time with, everything was determined by the pharaoh's command. More importantly, the cat's lifespan was tied to the pharaoh's lifespan. When the pharaoh died, cats were killed too, because they needed to accompany the pharaoh on his journey to the afterlife. This death ritual was performed with a very special ceremony. After the pharaoh died, cats were gathered in a special hall. Priests would read each cat's name and count their services to the pharaoh. Then, cats were taken one by one to be mummified. The mummification process was very painful for cats. Because cats were usually alive during mummification, they weren't killed but were drugged with narcotic substances, then wrapped with bandages. In this way, they slowly died from inability to breathe. The reason for this cruel practice was to ensure that the cat's souls weren't damaged. According to belief, sudden death prevented the soul from properly separating from the body. Slow death ensured the soul's proper separation. The mummified cats were placed in the pharaoh's tomb. Hundreds of cat mummies would be found around the pharaoh. These cats would guide the pharaoh in his afterlife. Dr. Salima Ikram, archaeologist from the American University in Cairo, explained in 2019, 90% of cat mummies found in Egyptian tombs were intentionally killed. These cats died not from natural death but from ritual death. These findings show how dangerous the sacred status of cats actually was for them. Being treated as gods meant being ready to be sacrificed. The death rituals of cats weren't only performed during pharaoh deaths. Cats were also sacrificed during important religious holidays to ask for help from gods. During drought times, before wars, during disease outbreaks, cats were used to communicate with gods. These sacrifice rituals were performed collectively in the catacombs of Saqqara. Here, millions of cat mummies are found. Archaeologists discovered a very systematic cat-killing industry in these catacombs. Cats were bred in special farms and taken for ritual when they reached a certain age. In these farms, thousands of cats were kept. The cat's only purpose was to be sacrificed. This industry involved very big money. Wealthy Egyptians bought expensive cat mummies to make wishes to gods. The more expensive the mummy, the more powerful the prayer. Dr. Paul Nicholson, archaeologist from Cardiff University, states, "The cat mummy industry in ancient Egypt was as big as the oil industry of modern times. This wasn't just belief, but a huge economic system. The sacrifice of cats was used not only for religious but also political purposes. Pharaohs organized large cat sacrifice ceremonies to gain public support. These ceremonies showed that the pharaoh had strong connections with the gods. The public showed great interest in these ceremonies. Because the sacrifice of cats meant that the gods would be pleased and bring prosperity, people came from far away to witness the death of cats. These ceremonies were organized very dramatically. Large temples, crowds of thousands, music, dance, incense. The death of cats took place in almost a festival atmosphere. But for cats, these were final moments filled with fear. They couldn't understand the crowds around them, the music, the incense smell. They only felt fear and panic. Cat sacrifice ceremonies were performed according to very strict rules. Cats were killed at specific times with specific rituals. The method of death varied according to the cat's status. Ordinary cats were killed by breaking their necks. Sacred cats were killed by strangulation. Pharaoh's cats were killed by being put to sleep with special drugs. After death, the cats' bodies were prepared with special methods. Internal organs were removed. The body was dried, then it was treated with special resins and wrapped with bandages. This mummification process varied according to the cat's status. Ordinary cats were mummified with simple methods. Important cats underwent detailed processes like human mummies. Pharaoh's cats received the most special treatment. Their mummies were prepared with gold decorations, precious stones, and special perfumes. Some pharaoh cats' mummies were even more expensive than the pharaoh's own mummy. The mummified cats were placed in tombs very systematically. Each cat had a special position, a special direction. This placement determined the cat's duty in the afterlife. Some cats were positioned as guards at the tomb entrance. Some stood as servants at the pharaoh's feet. Others were placed as protectors at the pharaoh's bedside. This arrangement wasn't just random. Each cat's placement position was determined according to their duty in life. Cats skilled in hunting were mummified in hunter positions, playful cats in player positions. The cat's grave goods were also very special. Small prey animals, toys, food bowls, everything the cats loved was placed beside them. Because they would need these in the afterlife, some cats even had special servants buried with them. These servants were usually slaves tasked with caring for the cat. They were expected to serve with the cats in the afterlife too. Dr. Aidan Dodson, Egyptologist from Bristol University, states, in pharaoh tombs, the area allocated to cats is sometimes larger than the area allocated to the pharaoh's wives. This shows how valuable cats were to the pharaoh. The role of cats in the afterlife was a very complex system. They would serve not only as protectors but also as guides, judges, and witnesses. According to belief, the pharaoh would go through many tests in the afterlife. In these tests, cats would serve as witnesses. Cats would testify to the good deeds the pharaoh had done throughout his life. Also, there were dangerous creatures in the afterlife world. Large snakes, evil spirits, dark forces. Cats would protect the pharaoh against these dangers. Most importantly, cats would guide the pharaoh. The afterlife world was a complex labyrinth. Wrong paths, traps, deceptive lights. Cats would direct the pharaoh in the right direction in this labyrinth. These beliefs made cats indispensable for the pharaoh. No pharaoh would dare to pass into the afterlife without cats. In Pharaoh Tutankhamen's tomb, 116 cat mummies were found. These cats were of different ages and different breeds. Some were kittens, others were old cats. This diversity wasn't coincidental. Cats of every age had different duties in the afterlife. Kittens would provide entertainment, old cats wisdom, strong cats protection. Tutankhamun's cats had received very special treatment. Golden collars, silver decorations, precious stone eyes. Each cat was mummified like a work of art. The most special cat was the golden cat at Tutankhamun's head. This cat was the pharaoh's favorite cat. It had never left the pharaoh's side throughout his life. In death too, it would maintain the same closeness. Dr. Joanne Fletcher, archaeologist from York University, says, Tutankhamun's golden cat is the pinnacle of ancient Egyptian art. This mummy has more perfect craftsmanship than human mummies. The special status of cats wasn't limited to pharaohs only. Wealthy Egyptians also took their cats with them in their deaths. But this was a very expensive process. Only the very wealthy could mummify their cats. Middle-class Egyptians honored their cats in different ways. Cat's fur was cut and small mummies were made. This wasn't as effective as real mummification, but was an economical alternative. Poor Egyptians buried their cats in soil. But still, they left small gifts and food bowls at the cat's grave. They prayed for the cat's soul. These different practices show how valuable cats were in Egyptian society. Everyone tried to honor their cat according to their financial situation. The sacredness of cats also deeply affected daily life. In Egyptians' homes, there were special areas for cats. Eating places, sleeping places, play areas, Cats' food was prepared very carefully. The finest fish, meat, milk. Feeding cats constituted an important part of the family's food budget. When cats got sick, special doctors were called. Cat doctors were one of the most respected professions of that era, because the cat's health affected the family's spiritual state. Cat doctors used very special methods: healing herbs, magical medicines, religious rituals. Every method was tried to heal the cat. When cats died, the family went into great mourning. Everyone in the house cut their hair. They wore black clothes. No entertainment was done for a certain period. These mourning ceremonies lasted longer than mourning ceremonies for human deaths, because cats weren't just pets, but the family's spiritual protectors. The cat's funeral ceremony was performed with very special rituals. Priests were called, religious prayers were recited. Sacrifices were made for the cat's soul. Cats were buried in special cemeteries. These cemeteries were separate from human cemeteries but given the same importance. Cats' tombstones indicated their names and characteristics. Some wealthy families had special tomb complexes built for their cats. In these complexes, there were the cat's mummy, beloved objects, and servants' mummies. Dr. Melinda Hartwig, expert from the Metropolitan Museum of Art, states, "The status of cats in ancient Egypt resembles no animal's status in the modern world. They weren't just animals, but spiritual members of families." The sacredness of cats was also known in countries outside Egypt, Greece, Rome, Babylon. Throughout the ancient world, it was believed that Egyptian cats had special powers. This belief led to the development of cat trade. Egyptian cats were sold at very high prices. But the Egyptian government had banned cat exports, because cats were the country's strategic assets. Foreigners tried to obtain cats through illegal means, but if caught, they received the death penalty. Cat theft was a bigger crime than treason. Despite this ban, some cats were illegally taken abroad. These cats were considered very valuable in target countries. They were given as gifts to royal families. Greek historian Diodorus Siculus wrote in the 1st century BCE, a Roman soldier accidentally killed a cat. The Egyptian people were so angry that they tore the soldier to pieces. Even the Roman emperor couldn't intervene in this situation. This incident shows how serious the status of cats in Egypt was. Harming cats wasn't just a crime, but also a cause for war. The sacredness of cats began to change with Rome's invasion of Egypt in 30 BCE. Romans respected cats but didn't see them as gods. During the Roman period, cat sacrifice ceremonies gradually decreased. The cat mummy industry shrank. Cats began to be used more for practical purposes. But still, the special status of cats didn't completely disappear. Egyptians continued to secretly maintain their old beliefs. They continued to give special treatment to cats in their homes. With Islam's arrival in Egypt, the status of cats rose again. In Islam, cats were seen as clean animals. It was known that Prophet Muhammad loved cats. This situation enabled the reconciliation of Egyptians' old beliefs with the new religion. Showing respect to cats was both an old tradition and a requirement of the new religion. In modern Egypt, cats still have a special place. Thousands of street cats live in the streets of Cairo. People feed and protect these cats. Egyptians still believe that cats have spiritual power. When they're sick, they stay near cats. When making important decisions, they observe cats' behavior. Dr. Galila El-Kadi, anthropologist from Cairo University, says, "Modern Egyptians' relationship with cats is a continuation of cultural heritage from ancient Egypt. This bond has been preserved for 4,000 years. The status of cats in ancient Egypt also sheds light on modern animal rights discussions. The respect shown to cats was far ahead of that era. But, at the same time, the sacrifice of cats was also very cruel. This contradiction shows the complexity of human-animal relationships. Seeing animals as sacred doesn't mean protecting them. Sometimes, the greatest respect can turn into the greatest pain. Modern animal rights activists draw contradictory lessons from ancient Egypt. On one hand, the respect shown to cats is taken as an example. On the other hand, sacrifice rituals are criticized. Dr. Peter Singer, animal rights philosopher, states, "The status of cats in ancient Egypt shows that animals are valuable, but ritual deaths also show that this value was misinterpreted." Today, millions of cat mummies are displayed in Egyptian museums. These mummies are among the objects that tourists show the most interest in, but the tragedy behind these mummies is often not told. Visitors see how much cats were loved but don't learn how they were killed. Museum experts have begun to be more sensitive about this issue. They've started to tell about the trauma cats experienced, because real history includes not only beautiful stories but also painful truths. In recent years, scientific analysis of cat mummies has developed greatly. X-rays, CT scans, DNA analyzers. These technologies are revealing the causes of cats' deaths more clearly. The results are shocking. 80% of cats were killed by neck breaking. 20% were killed by strangulation. Only a very small portion died from natural causes. Dr. Richard Johnston, expert from the Cairo Museum, explains, "Modern technology is revealing the real story of ancient Egyptian cats. This story is much darker than we thought. There are other findings emerging from inside cat mummies. Some mummies contain not cats but other animals. Bird bones, mouse remains, even wood pieces. These findings show that fraud was committed in the cat mummy industry. Merchants produced fake mummies to earn more money. Customers didn't know that the mummy they thought was a cat was actually something else." Dr. Lydia McKnight, expert from Manchester University, states, "The cat mummy trade in ancient Egypt was so big that supply couldn't meet demand. That's why fake mummies were produced. This fraud shows that the sacredness of cats was commercialized. Religious feelings were mixed with economic interests. Divine belief was turning into a profit-seeking sector. Cat farms resembled modern industrial animal husbandry. Thousands of cats were kept in narrow areas. The focus was not on cats' welfare, but only on production speed. Workers in these farms began to see cats as animals. The concept of sacredness was lost in daily routine. Cats turned into just a product to be produced. When archaeologists found the remains of these farms, they were shocked. There was a very systematic massacre industry. Cats were separated by age groups and killed at specific times. The most painful finding was kitten mummies. Kittens only a few weeks old had been killed to be mummified. These babies hadn't even been weaned from their mother's milk. Dr. Paul Nicholson's research shows 35% of cat mummies found in Saqqara catacombs are babies under 1 year old. This points to systematic kitten massacre. These findings show the paradox of cat sacredness. Animals worshipped as gods were being killed industrially. At the same time, modern Egyptians are shocked when confronted with these truths, because the history told to them was how much cats were loved. The systematic massacre of cats was hidden. This situation shows prejudices in historical writing. Beautiful stories are preserved, painful truths are forgotten. But real history should include both light and shadow. The ancient Egyptian story of cats contains important lessons for today. Seeing animals as sacred isn't enough. It's also necessary to protect them and provide welfare. The modern animal industry doesn't look very different from ancient Egypt. Animals are produced and killed for economic interests. Welfare remains behind profit motives. But at the same time, animal rights consciousness is also developing. People understand that animals suffer, they demand more humane treatment. This change is like ancient Egypt developing in reverse. In that era, there was sacredness but no welfare. Now welfare is increasing, sacredness is decreasing. The ideal would be having both sacredness and welfare together. Seeing animals as valuable and protecting them at the same time. Dr. Temple Grandin, animal welfare expert, says, "The story of ancient Egyptian cats shows that good intentions aren't enough. A systematic approach is needed to protect animals." The ancient Egyptian experience of cats also sheds light on the modern pet industry. Today, cats are seen as very valuable. But sometimes this value is expressed in wrong ways. Expensive cat breeds, genetic manipulation, cosmetic operations, love for cats can sometimes harm cats' nature. Modern cats live much more comfortably than ancient Egyptian cats. Veterinary medicine has developed, nutrition quality has increased, lifespans have extended. But at the same time, there are some problems too. Obesity, behavioral disorders, genetic diseases. Modern life creates difficulties for cats too. Regarding cats' welfare, lessons can be learned from ancient Egypt. Seeing cats as sacred is nice, but understanding their needs is more important. Tonight, while telling the story of ancient Egyptian cats, we've seen the contradictory situation they lived in. Cats worshipped as gods on one hand, systematically killed on the other. Cats living in luxury but having no freedom. Cats loved but not understood. This story shows the complexity of human relationships. Good intentions aren't enough. To truly protect animals, it's necessary to understand them. We started with the story of Pharaoh Miuty. She was the cat with golden collars, living a luxurious life but dying with her Pharaoh Miuties. Story is a symbol of the drama thousands of cats experienced. They were beings that humans saw as gods but sacrificed. Modern cats are much luckier than Miuty. They have freedom, natural lifespans, and love. But they're still dependent on human decisions. The real happiness of cats isn't in being treated as gods or living luxuriously. It's in having their natural needs met. Being able to live freely. The painful story of ancient Egyptian cats gives this message to today. Loving animals isn't enough. It's necessary to understand them, protect them, and enable them to live freely. Thank you for sharing this unforgettable story tonight. I hope you have peaceful dreams. And remember, true love sometimes requires accepting the most painful truths. Good night, friends.